Hi, I'm Robert. Thank you for tuning in to my video series about Wernicke's encephalopathy. You've tuned in to part 9. So if you hadn't listened to part 1 through 8, you may want to do that. Part 1 was our pre-hospital visit explanation. Part 2 was our checking into the hospital. Part 3 was our hospital visit. Part 4 was our being discharged and first night out. Part 5 was some of the difficulties that I was experiencing. And part 6 was actually the realizing how much help I actually needed as a caregiver. Part 7 was a trip out of town and trying to enter into living a daily normal life. Part 8 was our post-doctor visits, dealing with the sickness directly. And here's part 9 with my first level of things that I'm doing to care for my wife. One of the first things that I realized after coming out of the hospital, and I don't know if they told me or not, but it was my wife was too confused, too disoriented, and too forgetful to be driving a vehicle. So she expressed her intentions of driving a vehicle. So I put the keys away. I kept the keys on my person. My dad would say, sleep with them in your mouth. And I wasn't going to let her drive. We were home for about a week, and we had recently got back from a trip. And my wife had started smoking. You know, in her attempts to reach for adult things to do, she figured smoking was something that she could do. You know, I was not trying to fight every battle. I was carefully trying to pick my battles. So I decided I'm not going to fight her about smoking. You know, until she lights her hair on fire or burns her blouse or something like that, she can smoke. So we got her some cigarettes from somewhere, I don't know, and she began smoking. While we were home on a Saturday evening, she began to ask me why I was following her around like a puppy. Sometimes she couldn't remember things for 2 minutes. Sometimes she could remember things for an hour or 2. I came to the realization that she was more tuned in to emotions than she could ever be to words at this point. So she would forget things that was said, but remember that she was emotionally harmed in some way. In other words, if she got mad at me, she would stay mad for hours and hours, even if she didn't remember why. I also knew that she interpreted me talking to others about her sickness as a distrustful, bad thing to do, as if I was loading the deck against her, building reasons to leave her and desert her and abandon her. So she felt betrayed anytime I talked to somebody about it. What was a new learning experience is that some of her senses were increasing. Her ability to hear through walls and around corners was breathtaking. If you were a movie watcher, they had this movie called Spider-Man. Spider-Man can hear a bug climbing up the wall of the building outside. My wife was like this. She could be in the back room of the house, in the bedroom, watching TV with the TV on. I could be outside in front of the house, leaning against the mailbox, talking to her mother about how she's doing. And when I came inside and made my way to the back room where she was waiting on me and would confront me about discussing her condition with her mother. She felt like I had betrayed her and was trying to get her mother to not like her anymore. This was troubling because now I'm not only trying to help her in her sickness, I can't talk to nobody else about it without her hearing and knowing. I quickly learned that it's real hard for her to hear me if I'm in the garage, locked in the car with the windows up. That was about the only place that she couldn't hear me talking to someone about how she's doing. Another thing that happened on the Saturday after Thanksgiving, she exited the kitchen and stepped into the garage. She asked me why I was following her like a puppy dog. So I caught myself giving her a few feet. About 8 minutes later, I realized that I hadn't seen or heard her. All of a sudden, I heard the garage door close, and I expected her to come in the house. A minute later, she did not come in. So I opened the garage door to see how she was doing. Lo and behold, one of the cars was gone. I don't know where she got the key from. I don't know where she was going. The car was gone. So in a full-blown panic, I ran through the house, found another set of keys, got in the car, and raced down to the road to find where she was going. I caught up to her at the first traffic light, and she seemed to be doing okay driving. So I laid back a little bit and followed her to where she was going, and she went straight to the liquor store. She enters into the liquor store, so I take the car, park it across the street, and down a few lots into a McDonald's parking lot. I put my car in the parking space that she parked in. 5 minutes later, when she got out of the liquor store, I was sitting in my car, a totally different car, in her parking spot. She comes out of the liquor store, gets in my car, looks at me and says, "Okay, I'm ready to go." I back out. We drive halfway home. And she looked at me and said, "Did I drive or did you drive?" I said, "Oh, sweetie, it's okay. I don't mind driving. You don't like driving that much anyway." She said, "Oh, okay." So here it was. In the time it took her to enter the liquor store and buy alcohol, she had totally forgotten that she had driven to the liquor store. I'm telling you, I did not have enough energy, strength, or desire to try to wrestle that alcohol off of her. That was some alcohol that she was going to drink. I just didn't have the strength to do it. You know, she hid the alcohol from me. I had a hard time finding it. And by the time I did, half of it was gone. I diluted it down to almost nothing. And, you know, I just decided I'd have to do a better job at hiding those keys. So I had my daughter take me to pick up that other car. So between her supernatural hearing, her thinking that I was trying to destroy her life, and her inability to remember where she was going or how she was getting there, it was very difficult for me to imagine to take care of her. And every time I sat with the doctor and interacted with them about how to care for her, and their lack of information was also troubling. My friends being distant because they were afraid of the backlash of her emails and anything else that was going on was troubling, making it more difficult to care for her. And my need to leave the house from time to time and having the fear that she would be cooking something and start a fire was troubling. So I quickly learned that any time I left the house, I had to make the environment safe. So every time I left the house, I turned the breaker off to the range. She could not cook anything on the stove while I was gone. So part of my routine for leaving the house to take care of errands or work, I cut the breaker off. It was increasingly difficult to deal with. The gastric bypass doctor instructed us to get lab works done, so we did that. My daughter came home for her Christmas break in the middle of December. We got the results from her blood test, went back to the doctor to review them. and her levels were good. So here we are. My wife wakes up terrified every morning. Takes me 2.5 to 3 hours to calm her down enough to let her know that I'm not her enemy, to get her to eat. She's hiding her vitamins and things like that. I went to a health food store and came to the conclusion that her getting that vitamin is the most important thing in the world, and me keeping her nutrition level up will help her stay healthy. She's no longer going to jazzercise. She thinks the people there hate her. She doesn't know if it's paid for or not paid for. She's now living her life every day in confusion. She thinks I'm trying to put her away when I'm doing everything I can to take care of her. And she's now having struggles with people that she talks to on the phone, like her mom and things like that. Whenever somebody say, "Don't you remember such and such?" It's like an act of violence against her, because she doesn't remember, and she thinks you're playing mind games with her by saying those things. So this is getting more and more difficult to care for her. I'm not doubting my ability to pull it off, and her safety concerns is of great concern to me. So the next video, we'll talk about some more daily care and maybe some of the joys and some of the funny stories that I now have as a result of rescuing someone suffering from this condition. And my wife is doing much better now. So here's some bright portions of the story about to come.